All right, I'm going to go ahead on and sound like the school teacher that I am, and I'm just going to say good evening. And if you could hear me, if you could give Dr. Goods a thumbs up so that I know that you can hear me, I'll feel real good. Thumbs up in the reaction is always wonderful. Appreciate that. Thank you so much. And we don't want to take up too much of your time here on a Thursday evening, so I'll go ahead and give you all our greetings and our welcome. I just saw our panelist, our last panelist slide in, and so I think we're all set to go. So, on behalf of the University of Rhode Island, the College of Arts and Sciences, and the Department of Music, I want to welcome everyone to this very unique, distinguished Visiting Artists Series event. We're thrilled to have with us tonight Ms. Mona Haydar. And so if we could give her a virtual round of applause and the reactions, that'd be fantastic. And because of the times that we're in and the situation, we are unable to have her here rocking our concert hall live and in person. But she has so graciously agreed this week to speak to our students and to sit down and have this panel discussion and share her material via YouTube and be here to discuss it and to help us to dive into her artistry. And we're excited for this because 3 years ago, I got the opportunity, very shortly after I joined the faculty here at the University of Rhode Island, to create a course called MUS 301, which is Music as a Form of Social Protest. And one of my main talking points and my arguments for the creation of the course was that the music of my generation, hip hop, was created as a form of social protest, that the music had been used to solve social problems in the community, and it had been used to express our upset and our angst and our need for change. And I was so elated that in just the second semester that I taught this course, a young Lebanese student of mine came up to me and said, "Hey, have you heard about this lady?" And she put me on to Mona's music. And so my student and I began to try to talk and figure out ways that we could get Mona here. And Mona's management and I have been talking for well over a year, but luckily we were able to get this to happen this semester. So we're so excited to have her here because she is the embodiment of a protest artist, and we're excited to have her in this conversation. Joining me tonight is Ms. Katrin Joma, who is part of the political science department and the philosophy department. And her scholarship includes issues around political science and philosophy, and with a focus on politics and religion in the Middle East. And joining her also from the philosophy department, as well as Africana Studies and English, is Dr. James Hale, whose research interests intersect recent continental philosophies, aesthetics, so philosophy and of literature, philosophy of place, Africana philosophy, and the philosophy of race. So we are happy to have both of them here. If you can give them a welcome. And I just want to give you guys a little bit of Mona's official biography. And out of respect for all of our Muslim students that are joining us from the Muslim Student Association, and out of an interest, out of the spirit of interfaith, we want to open up this event after I read her biography with a reading of Al-Fatiha. Okay, so Mona Haydar is a rapper, poet, activist, meditator, composting devotee, mountain girl, solar power lover, and tireless God enthusiast. She practices a life of sacred activism, poetry, contemplation, and advocacy for living gently upon the earth. Billboard critics named Mona Haydar's debut song, Hijabi, one of 2017's top protest songs, and then later named it one of the top 25 all-time feminist anthems. Mona is a multidisciplinary artist, rapper, and culture creator who, growing up in Flint, Michigan as a Syrian-American, developed a sound which is deeply rooted in her intersectional identity and sensibilities. So after this next short piece, the next voice you will hear will be a welcome from Ms. Mona Haydar.
Al-Fatiha. And please let me take an opportunity to acknowledge my true gratitude to the creator that has actually been the core of making this event possible. My genuine thanks to University of Rhode Island and Dr. Goods, and to our distinguished lecturer this evening. I'm Sister Yasmin. I'm a monotheistic submitter. I hail as a member from the Muslim Women's Association of Pittsburgh, and I'm going to recite this most often recited prayer from the Holy Quran, the first chapter. In English, you would say the key, but in Arabic, Al-Fatiha. And I'm going to recite it in English because that is our common denominator language for the evening. In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful, praise be to God, Lord of the universe, most gracious, most merciful, Master of the day of judgment. You alone we worship. You alone we ask for help. Guide us in the right path, the path of those whom you blessed, not of those who have deserved wrath, nor of the strayers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow.
So, Mona, we're so glad to have you here tonight. Welcome to you once again. Thank you for being here tonight. And we just want to welcome you and give you the opportunity to speak for a few seconds. Or if you're ready to start with music, I have your list from yesterday, and I think we were ready to do Barbarian. I don't know if you just want to start there and then talk a little bit. It's completely up to you.
Yeah, first of all, Dr. Good, thank you so much for having me. Again, I so enjoyed your class the other day. What a powerful group of students that you have, and you know, the yearning for music as liberation is just such a meaningful part of my life, and was part of my life, especially in the college setting. So I appreciate the work that you're doing up there. And Sister Yasmin, thank you so much for that recitation. I would love to start with Barbarian, and then I feel like that'll be a really good place. The song Barbarian, I was actually sitting in I have a master's degree in Christian ethics from Union Theological Seminary, and I was sitting in a post-colonial liturgy class, and we were talking about barbarians, who is a citizen of the empire and who is not. And as we were talking about barbarism, I recognized that my people and a lot of other peoples were not considered citizens. We were considered barbarians. We were considered less than human. And that just got me thinking about citizenship, you know, the privilege that I have now to be an American citizen, what that means, and how I can utilize the currency that is my privilege into the system to dismantle the oppressive, you know, functions of that system. So that is where this song came from, and I hope we can talk a little bit more about it as we get into it.
Okay, here we go.
If they're civilized, I'd rather stay savage. We them barbarians, beautiful and scaring them, earth shaking, rattling, be wild out loud again. We them barbarians, jazz jasmine and frankincense, feminine invading them, beautiful barbarians. Say it again, beautiful barbarian. Say it again, beautiful barbarian. Beast before now, they wanna be wearing my skin. We don't let them win, we beautiful barbarians. Let me think back, I remember days on these big lips. Oh, they used to hate, now the script flip. Oh hey, they got a lip kit. College 100 real talk, that's what I'm on. If I'm a savage, then you're a fraud. My chain's off, won't be long. See me glowing, look at God. So fresh and so eloquent, I keep it humble and elegant, your beauty standard irrelevant, a revolution is so imminent, we keep it joyful and better when I see my mama as evidence, nobody needs your benevolence, what? Feminist planet is imminent, we them barbarians, beautiful and scaring them, earth shaking, rattling, be wild out loud again, we them barbarians, jasmine and frankincense, feminine invading them, beautiful barbarians. Barbarian, that's how you really feel? Like you didn't start war over oil fields? Opium, poppy seeds, money moves, Cardi B tried to make me hate me from my hips and nose. Now they got imposters on a spread in vogue. Not a single feature that they let us own. Oh, they packing fillers, styrofoam. Ultra light be metaphysical, power no longer invisible, your beauty standard is cynical, oh, a revolution is so critical, power so deep and so mystical, they say the personal is so political, oh, women, our future is winnable, we gotta be indivisible. We them barbarians, beautiful and scaring them, earth shaking, rattling, be wild out loud again, we them barbarians, jasmine and frankincense, feminine invading them, beautiful barbarians. Say it again, beautiful barbarian. Say it again, beautiful barbarian. Beast before now, they wanna be wearing my skin. We don't let them win, we beautiful barbarians. This nose, decolonize. This hair, decolonize. This skin, decolonize. This body, decolonize. This mind, decolonize.
All right. So I was thinking maybe we could start with Katrin. If you could maybe start with the first question for this particular song, and then I think Dr. Hale has a question for Mona, and then we can kind of just move from there.
So, hi, Mona. We're happy that you're here with us. And I thought that the song was cool and provocative. That's how I see it. So when you say decolonize, what do you mean? I mean, what was the intention about that in the song?
Yeah, so I was speaking directly from my context, being that I am a Syrian woman. My family immigrated from Syria almost exactly 50 years ago. And, my folks are a direct representation of the colonial mindset within Syria. They were raised in a generation that didn't value Arab features, that didn't value Syrian culture. It was all about how can we be more French, because France was the occupying force in Syria. And French culture continues to reign supremacy over Syrian culture, over Levantine culture, over many African countries and cultures. And that sort of presiding as a judge and jury over what culture is deemed refined, what culture is deemed beautiful, what features of ours, So I'll give one example, growing up, going to Syria every few summers. I remember overhearing, I must have been 8 or 9 years old, and I remember overhearing family members discussing my features and talking about me, being so young, I think people didn't maybe recognize that this would have such an impact on me, but I heard these words. And one of my aunts said, oh, poor girl, she got the big lips from her father's side of the family. And my father comes from a less affluent family, kind of villager culture, darker skinned, less educated part of Syria. And, they were so kind of sad that I got that from my dad's side of the family. But they added to that, but we're so grateful and she'll be okay. She'll probably find herself a husband because she's got the fair skin. So she'll probably be okay. She's not too ugly.
Wow.
So because in France, they had the pinnacle of French beauty at the time was a petite bouche, a small mouth. And if your mouth was too big, you were, not beautiful according to those standards. So for me, hearing that at 8 years old, I definitely grew up with a complex about having the mouth that I have. And, it wasn't like, now people are always like, oh, she definitely has fillers, she has this and that. But it's such a colonial mindset, like it can't belong to me. It can't truly be what I look like and what I grew up with. And it was this thing that I had to decolonize within my own self to affirm that, I was beautiful exactly the way I was, whether dominant culture and society and their beauty standards affirmed me or not. With the Kardashianization of the world now, whether or not they appreciate me, I'm gonna appreciate me. So that's what that song was about. And yeah, that's where that decolonize chant comes from.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So yeah, because when I first heard it, I was thinking decolonize, you're addressing the colonizers. But I think from what you said, you're addressing the mindset that the people who are colonized start to believe about themselves. And that's even more powerful.
Yeah, it's absolutely about neuroplasticity and our own ability as people who have been historically colonized, people who have been historically disenfranchised, people who have historically been perpetrated, things like genocide, things like slavery, to take those inherited traumas, those inherited dynamics that we a lot of the time just like hold on to as a part of our culture, as a part of our identity, and instead doing that work to stop the negative cycles inside of our own minds and in our own hearts, breaking the cycle of limiting beliefs about us because of who we are, where we come from, who our ancestors were.
Great. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think I'm gonna leave it to James and then I can ask more later.
Thank you for that question.
Dr. Hale?
Yeah, thank you for coming, Mona, and thank you, Professor Goods, for arranging this. I enjoyed listening to the song again. I listened to it earlier and was reading part of your bio. And what was really striking about it, especially with your exchange just right now, is the idea of the barbarian as a sort of reversal of the traditional understanding of barbarian. And I read that as sort of like a decolonial move. And one of the questions that sort of struck me when I was reading your bio was your work with James Cone and Black theology, and sort of James Cone's claim, especially in the cross and the lynching tree, about the blackness of God and the blackness of Christ and becoming Black as a sort of theological move. And I was wondering, when you were talking about this sort of decolonial move, I heard you asking for a kind of counter standard of humanity and civilization, especially at the very beginning, and sort of rejecting the Western norm of humanity. And I wanted you to say something more about what you might have had in mind for what a new standard of humanity would be. And then I have a follow-up question for that, but I wanted to have you say something about that.
Cool. Yeah, thank you for that Wow, you really did your homework, your research. I mean, is one to expect less. No. So thank you for that. It's an honor when people really come, with that kind of deep dive. So thank you. Um, yeah. So I am somebody who learned hip hop, who learned this craft specifically from Black people. I wouldn't have the voice that I have if it weren't for specifically a few Black women in Flint, Michigan who believed in me. And my work with Dr. Cohn was just a deepening of that, um, identifying myself in the context of America, and identifying the work that needs to be done. Islam and America are inextricable. That you cannot. They're inseparable from one another. And hip hop comes into that via the blues, via jazz, very early on. And so, the colonial decolonial move for me, if they're civilized, I'd rather stay savage. If dropping bombs and building nuclear weapons and figuring out how to create an atom bomb. If that stuff is civilized, I'd rather stay with my own people and not figure that stuff out, not know about that. I'd rather stay in the dark ages, if you will. That kind of technology, I feel like actually doesn't serve um, humanity's ultimate goals of enlightenment and yeah, in the service of God, in the service of beauty, in the service of beauty making in the world, which is what I believe to be the role of a Muslim. And so, yeah, you're talking about that move into decoloniality. For me, it's a lived experience. It's something that we have to practice. And so for me as a Muslim, as somebody who learned and benefits from the sacrifice of Black people in this country, I had to do what I needed to do to understand how I could serve that cause, how I could serve the cause of justice. And so Black liberation theology for me was that diving board into that deep wellspring of how we can reimagine a world that is beautiful and just and equitable. And as a believing person, Dr. Cohn's work spoke to me. And that was actually why I went to grad school, period. I can't just talk about being committed to justice and not truly understand the undergirding framework of racism in this country, of genocide in this country. So, for me, it was put up or shut up. So that's what it was.
And just a quick follow up, because I was reading one of your, I think it's a poem, "The More Beautiful World," and part of what I was taking you to be saying in a decolonial move is a kind of radical love and a kind of radical simplicity, so like there were a couple of lines that I wanted to point to that I thought were like the decolonial move that seems to be, for me at least, more radical than a sort of anti-colonial move. So you write in there, what if foreign policy was generosity? What if pregnant mamas negotiated homeland security? And I heard in that sort of a radically disparate or different perspective that just alone would be, decolonial, as opposed to sort of just critical and anti-Western, actually changing the perspective of humanity itself towards a sort of more generosity. So I just wanted to I heard that as a transition when you were talking about a more beautiful world.
Yeah, I mean, in that same poem, I also talk about what if our foreign policy was generosity, and then I talk about, I'm not remembering the exact wording I used, but basically like, what if we sent over poets instead of bombs? What if we sent over artists instead, as our diplomacy campaigns? What if that was our foreign policy? And for me, we really live in the upside down. I really just see us as living in a backwards world where we don't value the things that are worthy of valuing. For instance, I was recently asked, what is your metric of success? And people often like want to talk about, oh, views or likes or, wealth, the accumulation of wealth and fine things, fine goods. And that's great. I like nice things just like the next person. I'm a Taurus. So, I mean, that's great. But at the end of the day, contentment, true contentment, is what I'm after. And contentment for me falls under the umbrella of living life's purpose to the fullest, living my particular individual. And that's for me where individuality comes in. Like we can talk about the Western concept of individuality. We can deconstruct Disney movies on the savior complex. We can deconstruct Western Christianity about, the singular individual savior, and how that came in through empire, through the emperor. When really traditional indigenous societies and cultures all are about community. They're about community building and how we save each other. And for me, that's hip hop. That's the world of hip hop. That's the world of art. It's people working together to radically change and shift. And I mean, really, when people are so afraid of, like these mothers who are concerned because of rap music or whatever, we used to hear a lot of those stories in the 80s and 90s. And, I believe they had a right to be concerned because this is incredible work. And music can totally shift the zeitgeist. It can change the world. And hip hop is a part of the dominant culture now, and it is doing that. We can talk about modern hip hop, but I really believe in that power. And so I think our words have meaning. And just to go back into the simplification of what I was talking about, both in that poem and in that song, our words have true meaning. And our words are prayers. They're, if you will, manifestations, and they will come to be, whether it's within our own lives, within the lives of our children, within the lives of this earth that we will all eventually return to. And yeah, so it's a powerful thing, and we have to use it wisely.
Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
I wanted to see if there was another piece that maybe you could share with us that you wouldn't mind talking about. Maybe something where we're dealing with feminism. We have some questions around feminism in the chat, and I know we're going to open it up to let some students ask questions in a second. So maybe something along those lines.
Are you asking me, or are you asking the panel for a question?
No, I'm asking you.
Okay. Sorry, Zoom is so awkward. I love it, but it's so awkward. It's like, wait, who are you talking to? Yeah, I mean, man, the pregnant mamas piece and feminism, that for me is huge, being a woman who has gone through that in my life. I just really believe in this. I'm going to sound a little woo-woo right now for a second, but, I really believe that the creative powers that exist within the body of women, the bodies of women, or people with uteruses, this is one of the most dynamic, mega incredible superpowers in the world. And that is why I believe that we have a global problem with toxic masculinity. I think patriarchy is actually fine without the toxic masculinity. I think there's nothing wrong with men being in power if men wielded that power with justice and equity. There would be nothing wrong with that. There would be nothing wrong with a patriarchal world if it was done with justice and equity. And so that's where I differ with a lot of feminists, because I believe that modern patriarchy, and I mean modern as in for the last couple thousand years, it is so terrified of the creative powers of the female body of the uterus, literally. And it's very interesting because coming from the Islamic framework, the tradition literally, like every time we pray, every time we go to eat, every time we start something, we have to use the words Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. And I talked about this a little bit in your class, Dr. Goods. But that was, you know, the first time I really saw myself in hip hop was on Mostaf's album, Black on Both Sides, where he begins that album with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. This is what Muslims all over the world, no matter where they live, that's how they begin when they eat. It's what they say when they get in the car. It's what they say when they get back in the house. It's just what you begin everything with. And Rahman is the word, which the root of that word is Raham, is literally uterus. Bismillah ar-Rahman, you know, and the root of that word, which God saw fit to tell all of the worlds that you should call me by this word, which refers you to the uterus. So for me, I think this global superpower is what patriarchy, toxic masculinity is truly afraid of. And yeah, I always get into hot water when I start talking like this, because I mean,
No,
I would love to hear all of your thoughts on this as well.
No, I mean it's totally fine. I think this is a great segue. Is there a piece maybe where you kind of really had that fire burning in you and it came out? In particular, maybe Dog
you mean like a poem?
Or one of your videos we could show.
Yeah. Well, can we talk about what I just said first for a second, and then
sure.
I'll show the next
one. Absolutely.
Because I just said a bunch of stuff. So my fellow panelists, if you have anything to share on that, I would love to hear your thoughts.
I agree with you about the issue of patriarchy, that the problem is not in patriarchy itself. The problem is with the abuse of power. I really like that, and I agree with it. I think you framed it very well. The problem is the abuse of power rather than the institution itself. And I think you're also speaking from an Islamic perspective. You can correct me on that, you know, men in Islam are the providers and the caretakers of women and of the family in general. So I don't know if this affects your opinion. I'm curious to know. But yeah, because I also like, Muslim women are always on the spot. Whether you are in the Muslim community or outside the Muslim community, you're always sort of targeted. Everybody wants to know what you think. They have different expectations as well. You know, this is the expectation from the Muslim community. There's another expectation from outside. I'm also curious to know, how do you maneuver that? I know I've shifted off topic, but they're both related to each other. And also as a mother and as a wife, right? Like somebody who has a career and, she is a mother and a wife, and there's expectation from the tradition, right? And you're courageously sort of, in some of your songs, you're going against what the tradition calls for. And I think there's a difference between Islam and the tradition that a lot of people don't know about. Most likely, you know what I'm talking about. So, yeah, I don't know if you can comment on that. I opened a lot of questions, but yeah, so if you can.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a specific answer. Somebody recently, I did an interview for this guy who's writing a book. And he asked me, do you set out to be controversial? Like, is this like what your goal is, what your aim is? Because we do have these cultural norms that we're supposed to abide by, based on the cultures that we come from. And the thing that truly has liberated me, I feel, is the fact that I have studied my tradition. And I don't just take things because somebody said it. For me, it's about the critique and the critical thinking aspect of my tradition that I absolutely love. Mm-hmm. And it's always asking you to think deeper, to contemplate, to analyze. And this is a refrain found in the Quran again and again. And for me, as a believing person, and as a creative person, it just gets me so jazzed up, that this idea that I'm meant to use my faculties to discern what is true, what is right, what is real, what is good, and to take the beautiful in the world and to beautify the world. You know, our job is not just Islam. I feel like a lot of Muslims, we worship Islam. We worship the institution, you
Rather
know, the
than God. Yeah.
in itself rather than God.
Mhm.
And I worship God's self alone. And you know, in that way, my role as a mother, my role as a wife, my role as a artist, my role as a creative, my role as a rapper, my role as a chaplain, um, all of it just falls into line. You know, there's not a lot of doubt that happens. I feel like, especially now that I'm not just like a young artist anymore. You know, all of that kind of stuff just falls away. The critiques, the criticism. You know, I have people on the alt right who agree with the Muslims who are uber conservative, and what they agree on is that they don't like me. So at least they agree on something, and that's a common point. And you know, we're saving the world just right there. So
Okay. Very cool.
That was fantastic. Dr. Hell, do you have anything, or should we do some more music? Or
You can do some more music. I mean, I have some small things to say that sort of overlap with the kind of things that I work on, but I don't know how much they'll overlap. But I'll just say just shortly. One of the things you were talking about, the institution of patriarchy versus the sort of hegemonic order that is taken on. And I think part of what I work on is the construction of gender identity within empire, and how a lot of times when we think about the construction of race, gender sort of falls in line with the construction of race, which is a product of empire. So I just thought about those kind of things, and I heard you saying with this sort of toxic masculinity that it's attached to kind of empire thinking, even if people are not part of empire, or even if they're not like elites in that kind of way. They've sort of taken on aspects of empire in their own minds. So I just heard you saying that. So I just wanted to mention that, because there's some overlaps with
I'll tell
things that
you
I work
what,
on.
that part of my master's degree work, just reading about empire and who was permitted, you know, we talked about disability, and disability ethics within empire. We talked about the construction of gender within empire, the construction of sexuality within empire.
Mhm.
Like, we don't talk about that stuff enough, you know, as a society, because we've just inherited it and we just accept it. We just, you know, and for me, why is my work considered protest work? Why is it considered protest music? Because I feel like I'm constantly asking people to think about that stuff. And it's
Mhm.
hard, it's not easy, and it's not cute. You know, it's not like, hey, let's go to a party and have fun and, you know, dance the night away. Like, you know, like that's what a lot of music is about, and that's wonderful and great. But I feel like hip hop is a tool for liberation, and when it's used in its organic, original intention, uh, it can save the world. You know, it can change the world, and it can shift the zeitgeist away from empire, because at its origins, you know, that's what Africa Bambaataa was all about. You know, that was the core lesson and meaning, to it. So that's why I'm in music. Exactly what you just said.
okay, so a couple of things. Um, we have some good questions in the chat. Um, Somebody asked, your music is more centered around the culture of hip hop versus the mainstream hip hop that revolves around commands of the music industry. Is the industry itself a motivating factor that keeps you independent?
I love it. Yeah, I mean, I am an independent artist on purpose. You know, I've had offers and interest in my work, and people have wanted to support it through their labels and through deals, but ultimately, I want to be able to speak the truth. For me, this is I had hoped to share this with your students, Dr. Goods, the other day, but I didn't get to it. But for me, one of my practices and the way that I see this work is that it's about humbling the mind and the intellect. And it's about elevating the heart work, you know, that work that's deeply engaged with spirit, with acknowledging that we're so much more than just our physical bodies, our, you know, the shape of our noses or whatever, the texture of our hair. Like we are so much more than these bodies. And when we humble the mind and the intellect, and when we elevate the spirit and the heart, we are able to speak truth. They sort of meet in this mouth space, you know, and that's the power of voice. That's the power of um you know, those who, yeah, my friend shifted that saying, you know, they used to say speak truth to power, and she said no, we are the power, we speak truth to domination. And that is why I studied dominion theology, you know, this idea that we can own the earth and that we can own people and that we can do whatever it is that we want because we're somehow this special species, you know. And for me, it's about undoing that work and humbling the mind and elevating the heart so that we can always speak truth. So for me, nobody, no, I don't feel like any record label has that interest at heart, you know. So I'm gonna continue to remain independent, even though it means that, you know, I don't get the biggest paychecks. But for me, that's not a value that I uphold in my life. And I feel like if that's meant to come, hey, I'm open. I'm open, but it's not the main value of my life.
Outstanding. Thank you. I was glad to see somebody ask that because I know that you had kind of wanted to get to that yesterday in class and we didn't quite get there. Um,
If
Good.
you want, we can move into the song called "Lifted."
Okay.
We can pull that one up. That one's we're talking a little bit about women and femininity, and that is a song that actually you know, like music can save us, and in a way that song saved me from the depths of postpartum depression. um and it was that melody that came through for me. So
Absolutely. Let's share that with everybody right now.
I can lift you out of your pain if you let me, if you let me. Let's get lifted. Take the pain away if you let me, if you let me. Everybody's so confused, trying to numb it all. Getting high, popping pillies or the alcohol. On the verge of crisis, battling internal ISIS. Trying to stay above the water, but we out here drowning. Beautiful, buried deep, gotta hold our breath. Die before our death, dive deep, drown, keep breathing. Keep being, keep clearing, keep seeing, keep breathing. Shedding old pattern, no longer serving me. Swerving on stink negativity. Burn the Palo Santo, burning all the sage. Put me on a pedestal, wait and watch me fall. Nobody is perfect, we all have perfect flaws. I can lift you. I know the world seems crazy, I'll be down for you, baby. I'll be right here, right here. If you let me, if you let me, let's get lifted. When the world falls down and there's no one else around, I'll be right here, you know, right here. If you let me, if you let me, I can lift you, lift you, lift you, lift you, lift you. So let's get lifted, 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 lifted. So much hope for the world, so much worth dying for, even more worth living for. Balance is imperative, a liberating narrative. I see you, I feel you, in your struggle, in your pain, trying to win at this game. Don't give up, fight the good fight, pray all through the night. Wake up to reality, an alternate dimension of compassion, of expansion, of attraction. No transaction, all free, be free, so free. Wake up to the truth. Multiverse is generous, emerging so victorious. On the dean of tenderness, dive deep, drown sweet, give into the wave. It's a new day. I can lift you. I know the world seems crazy. I'll be down for you, baby. I'll be right here, right here. If you let me, if you let me, let's get lifted. When the world falls down and there's no one else around, I'll be right here, you know, right here. If you let me, if you let me, I can lift you, lift you, lift you, lift you, lift you. So let's get lifted, 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 lifted. Living in that new earth, dying just to give birth to a world free from hurt. Mental hell's rotten, rock bottom, hell is postpartum. Now like Moses partum, like Obama pardon. Getting off the pain train, waist train, weight train. Letting go of needing gain, healing from unseen wounds. Being present, so attuned, like a blossom up in bloom. Teleporting through the trauma on a star piece. Trekkie saga, subtle healing hustle, but we gotta lift you. I know the world seems crazy, I'll be down for you, baby. I'll be right here, right here. If you let me, if you let me, let's get lifted. When the world falls down and there's no one else around, I'll be right here, you know, right here. If you let me, if you let me, I can lift you, lift you, lift you, lift you, lift you. So let's get lifted, 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 lifted.
All right, Mona, that's beautiful. I hate to jump in ahead of everybody, but could you maybe talk about just a couple of things? Maybe, you know, what was the deeper meaning, but then could you maybe talk about the visuals, because you know there's two pieces of art that you just presented to us. There was what we heard, but then there was what we saw, and this is a very powerful and stirring video that it almost takes you away, and you can kind of get lost in the visuals, and then, you know, all of a sudden, you know, if you pay attention to the words, there's these other words, and it sometimes it's kind of hard for me to keep up with both at the same time. So if you could maybe talk about that just a little bit, I think that would be great.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I think video, the format, the artistic format of video is such an interesting mode to tell a story through, and I feel like I'm slowly learning how to do that better. That's actually my favorite video that we've made, and it was produced by a woman who I worked with, and um, you know, for me, that song is really about, in the last verse, I say, subtle healing hustle, but we got it. um you know, it's a hustle for sure. It's like this thing that we are all in the work of doing, you know, like everybody's always talking about, like, do the work, do the work, you know. It's almost like cliche now, you know. I'm doing my work. And the thing for me that really that video relays is that we're always in the struggle, and it's about removing the layers to reveal the living, breathing heart within us, you know. And Maulana Rumi, he actually talks about this in one of his poems, where he talks about the polishing of the heart. You know, if you are disturbed by every rub, how will you ever polish this heart of yours, you know? And so I feel like that's really what the video is about for me. It's about this ever revealing struggle, whether we're struggling with like the outward dynamics and infrastructures and systems, and you know, the systemic issues that we face as a society, or we're dealing with the more internal dynamics and processes. You know, we tried to relay that with the video from that little snippet of capturing the NYPD, you know, or the piece about showing, you know, that very large church. I won't name the church, but if you've been to Harlem near 116th Street, you know what I'm talking about. Um, you know, those places that represent so much to a lot of people. These institutions that are supposed to support us, you know, and what they end up doing. And then it was about, you know, this woman, this character, who's also going through something challenging, you know. She's sitting in a bathtub with all her clothes on. Like, she's clearly struggling. So, you know, we were trying to tell a multi faceted story, and I would love to hear you all's reflection on them.
Um, that's a perfect segue because we got about 15 or 20 minutes left. And I did want to get some, you know, if there are some brave students. I know you all love the chat, so I do have my fabulous graduate assistant, Daniel's been in the chat kind of monitoring for me. But if there's somebody brave enough and wants to to hop on and unmute themselves and ask a quick question, if you could raise your hand and then I'll acknowledge you and then we can go. Not to make it sound like an auction, but going once, going twice. Anybody have anything? I could count on Trinity. Go ahead, Trinity.
Sorry, I'm at my tattoo appointment, but I still wanted to participate because I know it meant a lot to Dr. Goods, and I think Mona is super dope. But what I said in the chat though was, what is like your like favorite like song that you made, like, and I said basically that one that you're super proud of. Like I know you're probably really proud of like your work, but what is like your just favorite like hands down song that you wrote?
First of all, I love that you're at a tattoo appointment, but you're still showing up for your school stuff. Like, that's freaking dope. I love it. Yeah, I mean, I'm very proud of Rep My Hijab. You know, the song Hijabi. It was listen, I was so scared. I had never done music before. I was so terrified of people's perceptions, people's stereotypes, people's critiques. You know, I mean, I had people very, very close to me in my life tell me, you know, nobody's ever going to take you seriously if you do this. This is, you know, if you do this, you're throwing the rest of your life away, basically. And for me, number one, that relies heavily on anti-Black racism, because I'm taking part in a culture which, you know, belongs to the Black community. And so for somebody to say that they don't recognize the dynamics of what they've just said, that if I take part in this culture, for me, that is about true liberation, that then somehow I'm throwing the rest of my life away and nobody can take me seriously again. But what I knew through my own experience was that every time I've ever challenged myself in my life, and I have pushed myself out of my comfort zone into something I knew I should do, not something stupid, but like something truly meaningful, of discipline and dedication that I had like worked very hard for. And then you come to that moment where you're about to do it and you can turn back, you know. I have done that many times with music. And every time I have turned away from it, um, I have achieved this like weird success as soon as I came back to it. And so it was this incredible instant affirmation from God, that it was like, you see, like, do you see how many people needed to hear this message of, you know, you're beautiful no matter your color. You know, and that song was dealing with the colorism issue within a lot of our communities. And yeah, so that song for me is just a representation of when you truly believe, and I know this sounds a little corny, but it really is about belief in yourself, that if you are meant to do a thing and you follow through with dedication and you pour your whole heart and soul into it, there's no such thing as failure, even if the success doesn't look like what you thought it would look like, because you grew and you pushed yourself. So for me, that song is a representation of me not allowing myself to just stay safe inside of spoken word poetry forever in my life.
Outstanding. Somebody else? Catherine? You said Catherine?
Yeah, and also Austin.
And then Austin? Okay. So if we can have Catherine first and then Austin.
Hi, thank you so much for coming tonight. I just wanted to ask if you had any figures in the music industry that you looked up to, or anybody that you drew inspiration from to create your music.
Yeah, I love that question. We talked a little bit about it in the class, in Dr. Good's class, but basically all of neo soul, that entire era of music really speaks to me, mainly because I'm a product of it. It was a direct inspiration for me. But I really love, for instance, Common. I really love Black Star, which is Mostaf or Yassine Bey, and Talib Kweli. I really love Rakim. Lauryn Hill, probably my greatest inspiration musically. She, in one album, I believe greatest of all time, male or female. And the kind of music that she put out is timeless, speaking to issues that are timeless. And for me, that's what makes good music, something that can stand the test of time. It ages well. A good cheese or a fine wine. So for me, it's like Lauryn Hill is pinnacle hip hop culture, the golden age, if you will. But of course, there's so much else, and there's a lot of modern stuff that I like too. But yeah, for me, Lauryn Hill is the tippity top.
Great. Austin, if you want to unmute yourself, I think you have a question.
Thank you so much. I want to say great music choices as well. I'm also a fan of Lauryn Hill's work, very great hip hop. Also, mashallah, I feel fortunate to be able to talk to you. I had a question in the chat earlier. You were kind of touching on the subject, and I was hoping you could maybe expound upon it deeper, because I am not Muslim myself, but from my outsider perspective, it seems as though, as a hijabi woman, or what I feel as though you are a hijabi woman, that is what you have spoken about, that dealing with the standards of the conservative nature of men in Islam, and then how some of the norms of Western societies like the United States and European, you were saying, the clashing between the French and Syrian culture. What have been the ways you've sort of worked around and sort of dealt with those stark differences?
Yeah, I'll tell you a story. One time I was traveling, and I was in Mexico actually, and this dude came up to me and he was like, "You know what? You don't have to wear that here." About my hijab. He was like, "You don't need to wear that here. Like, there's no men, there's no Arab men. There's nobody's gonna come for you. Like, you're free here in Mexico. You don't gotta wear that." And I looked at him and I said, "Is God in Mexico?" And he was like, "Oh yeah, I feel that." Um, for me, it's really a reorientation of it is making myself primary. And in my tradition, we are taught that once you know yourself, you know God. من عرف نفسه فقد عرف ربه. When you know yourself, you know God. And what that means is that when you have done that quiet work of sitting by yourself alone using your tools, you know, like all of religions, all of these traditions that we have been taught in the whole entire world are a mere set of tools for us to go deep into ourselves. And when we do that and we utilize those tools as they are meant to be utilized, we become the authority on ourselves and we become the authority on God. And nobody can tell you who or what God is. So for me, I'm not really concerned with the opinions of, you know, I identify as wearing hijab, but not because, you know, not because of men. You know, some people will tell you, oh, I cover because I cover from men and I don't want men to see me. For me, hijab actually has nothing to do with men, and it has to do with it's almost like meditation. It's almost like a meditation practice for me, you know, where it, it, I am the primary source and goal, you know, and so for me, hijab is about my own spiritual liberation from the beauty industrial complex, from, you know, from the male gaze, from Western feminism, from Eastern feminism, from everything and anything that tells me that I should do something with my body when I am the authority on this body and this self. And so my selfhood is primary. So for me, yeah, hijab is it's a multi-tool. It's like a little it's a multi-tool, you know. It's socio-political liberation, and also it's a spiritual practice for me. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question,
I think
Austin.
that was a very beautiful and eloquent answer. Thank you. And I appreciate the point of, not feeling as though, you're seeing God within yourself as a part of you instead of the, sort of stereotypical overseeing being. But I think that, I'm not of someone who's found that love for religion in my life. I was raised Catholic myself. I don't need to give you my life story, but I haven't found that love for God. So
Well,
you
man, you
know,
gotta love yourself first. I'll tell you what. And
that's what I'm working on.
when you love yourself, love for everything else pours out. You become an overflowing cup of love. And I don't mean love yourself in some kind of cheap new agey way. You know, I'm talking about love for self as in, you know, doing the work that it takes to do to make sure you're living a good and right life. A life committed to justice and equity in the world. And when you're doing that, that love just pours out, and it becomes this unconditional, infinite thing that you can't help but do. You know, it's not something you try to do. It just happens. And so, yeah, I mean, you know, for us as Muslims, Allah says on the tongue of the Prophet Muhammad, um, you know, the entire world could not contain me. All the universe could not contain me, but the heart of the living, breathing uh, being in witness of God can contain me, you know. And this is God speaking about God's self. So,
Yeah.
you know, what is this heart that we are meant to protect and to cultivate and to beautify through our lives? So for me, as an artist, first and foremost, that is my job. That is my work. Is, you know, making sure that I'm right. I'm living right. I'm doing right. Because the rest is gravy.
Putting yourself up on the mantle and finding that love for yourself and allowing that to your love for the world to show. I very much relate to that, and that's a very wonderful passage. It's one of the beautiful things, the poeticism of the Quran. I love that about it. Um, certain things can be said for like the Torah and the Bible, but I'm not sure what it is for me. But I do love that aspect of the Quran. For me is reading those passages and how everything's structured and worded in such a very like artistic and beautiful
I
way.
would I would actually disagree with you. I would say don't read it. I would say listen to it because it's a vibration. You know, anybody who studied ethnomusicology understands, you know, that uh the this Quran thing is a is a vibration. It's a musical vibration, and it's meant to be experienced, not just not just through the eyes, you know, of reading and intellectualizing, but it's meant to be experienced in the body as sound. And when we allow that to happen, I feel like that's truly decolonial, because we're taught, you know, to sit with a text and just frack a text, you know. And I just don't believe in that kind of exegesis, if you will. I believe in experience and gnosis.
So, like the experience in the mosque is what you feel is what truly translates. Because
No,
I've only taken the one Arabic class, so it's a pretty slow read.
I would actually recommend listening, just going online and typing in, you know, Quran and see what comes up in YouTube, and just listening to different recitations. You know, like for me, for instance, there was an African scholar who just recently passed away, but he was Sudanese, and his reading, his recitation, his melodic abilities are actually what really penetrated my heart for the first time with the Quran. So it is a rhythm, it is a vibration, it's something to experience, not just something. And you know, you're not gonna get that in a classroom. You know, for maybe in Dr. Good's class you will, but
You happen
Thank
to
you.
have that
Next
man's
question.
name? I'm sorry, I don't mean to drag it out. I'm just interested. I was hoping to, if you have
I
that
will
speaking.
type it in the chat. Give me one second.
Okay. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
We're getting close to time, so I wanted to turn to our panelists and see maybe if they had one more. Katrina, do you have maybe one more question for Mona?
I don't know. Actually, I'm enjoying what you're saying so much. Thank you so much for everything that you've been saying. I was listening attentively as a student, you know, as one of my students. Not actually, a lot of my students don't listen that much, but I was really enjoying what you're saying. I really, I'm happy that, you know, I'm part of this panel. Thank you, Emmett, for creating it. So I don't know what I wanted to ask something and then I forgot it, because like I was just, you know, focusing on what you're saying. So maybe James can, if you have something, and then until I remember what I had in mind.
Actually, if we have,
Yeah, I remember.
Okay.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
So I was curious. You said your favorite song is Hijabi, and that's my favorite too. I really like it, and I like the melody of it. Like I can keep repeating it. I want to ask you, like, and you've talked a lot about the spirituality part, which is great, but what would you say to the audience here about, you know, the effect of Islamic ideas or ideology on your music and your message?
Yeah, I mean, you can't separate my music from my faith, you know, because all of it is a pouring out from my heart. And what lives inside my heart is my faith, is my tradition. So you know, there's a lot of people who want to tell me I'm not Muslim enough because I do music or because I wear makeup or whatever it is, you know, that I'm not really Muslim. And then there's also people who tell me, you know, she's too Muslim, she's trying to bring Sharia law to America, and you know, she's actually like part of those nefarious groups or whatever, because she's out here influencing the minds. She's part of the Illuminati. I've gotten it all. So for me, Islam is truly a lived experience, and my music is about my life. You know, it's about me living my life as a Muslim, as a Muslima, as a woman, living her Islam, and at least trying to. You know, I completely admit, you know, I feel like one of my superpowers in my life is that um, I'm very open, that I am a person who makes mistakes. I am a person who struggles and fails often. And so, you know, you can never really come for me. You can't really come for my neck, whether it's in my Islam or otherwise, because I'm vulnerable and I share my struggles, whether it's with my faith or whether it's with, you know, being a wife and mother or whatever it is. You can't come for me because I already told you I am a failure. And in my tradition, you know, in our tradition, we know that Allah says, the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, he said that, you know, every single one of us is a sinner. We all make mistakes, you know, and the best of us mistake makers is the one who offers reparations, is the one who tries to make it better and tries to fix their wrongs and heal what is hurt. And so what I feel like is my work. I make mistakes, and for me, my music is an attempt to share love and healing, and you know, it's all a reflection of my faith, for sure, for sure.
That is amazing.
Thank
I want to get. I have another one of my colleagues who's not a panelist, but he is another one of our music professors. Mr. Cedric Mayfield has a question. Um, uh, if he wants to pop in.
Sure, there we go. Are we live?
Yes.
Excellent, excellent. Hi, Mona. My name is Cedric Mayfield. I'm just recently starting to teach at URI, and I'm thankful for the time you've spent here with us this evening and all of the words that you've spoken that have brought wisdom and clarity on a lot of topics, so thank you. The one thing I wanted to ask, and hopefully this will be fruitful for all of us, is that it's no secret that throughout time, a thing that can happen with artists is that the bulk of their work is most greatly appreciated after they're gone. And now with the use and the advent of technology and the internet and streaming and self-supported artists like yourself, we as consumers of the art of music can really start to take a bigger part in supporting artists now, and giving you your accolades now for, and being thankful for what you offer to the art of hip hop and to music in general. And so my question is, what are some of your suggestions that you're currently using that you can give us to help support you and your music and artists like you who are in your position, who are also offering spiritual upliftment and wisdom and knowledge around the world, who maybe aren't on big platforms or labels? But what can we do as people who, even right now at this moment, we're using the internet to engage you and your art? What are some suggestions you have for us to better support you and other artists in your position so that we can lift this up and counteract stuff like what we saw at the Grammys? Because it's really time for us to take a bigger hold on doing this.
But hold on, I was in the Grammys. I was actually in an ad during the commercials of the Grammys.
No doubt.
Kind of funny, right between Cardi B and Meg Thee Stallion. So, but thank you so much, Professor, for that beautiful invitation to share my thoughts on that. You know what? I really believe that we as a society need to do a better job of supporting one another. So, you know, what you said is so true. So few people get their flowers while they're still alive, and that is just such a sad reality. And for me, you know, my hope is that if people feel something, if they feel moved, inspired by my music, my ask is always that they share it with someone else who they feel would benefit from it, because we can only help each other if we're sharing with one another, you know. And it's not about, like, I honestly, like, it's not even about views for me. Like, I could care less. I get more hate views than I do anything else. So you know, I get enough of those. But truly, if my work reaches the right person, you know, and if it reaches the right heart and it heals somebody in some kind of way, then I feel I've received my flowers. You know, I could say, like, go follow me on Instagram or support me on Patreon. Like, all those things are real, but for me, the real lasting thing is the healing, work that I feel we're all trying to do all the time, and we often fail at it, you know. But I really truly feel that we're all on that journey to greater collective healing, to greater collective enlightenment. And yeah, just sharing something, if it moves you, if it heals you in some way, that for me, and building community in that way with sharing the tools that we feel work for us, and sharing the songs that we feel uplift us and motivate us. I recently, actually it's over a year ago now, but was this year even a really a year? I don't know. I put out a song called Good Body. And it's about, you know, all kinds of bodies and how they're all good. But the reactions, like that song actually didn't do that well. And but I was just so moved by the people who it actually touched, and the stories that came back to me of people who felt healed by hearing that song, and hearing themselves represented in that song. So for me, that's enough. So if you are inspired, to share it, and that doesn't just go for my work. I feel like it goes for anybody's work. You know, we shouldn't hoard our inspirations. We should share them wherever possible. So thank you for that question.
Absolutely, and thank you.
So sadly, we are reaching the end. So I just do want to offer our panelists, Dr. Hale, one last opportunity, real fast before I close out.
No, last questions or anything. Just I appreciate being able to be here to ask questions and to really listen to Mona's answers. So I'm grateful. So I appreciate the invitation to be on the panel.
Well, thank you, Dr. Hale. And as I get ready to close, full disclosure, there would be no MUS or AAF 208 History of Hip Hop and Black American Culture if it was not for the collegial work of Dr. James Hale, who actually co wrote the course with me. And we had intended to be this powerhouse team teaching duo, but the course was passed, but we were not able to go forth together. So you have consistently been supporting me in ways like this as we do our best to try to uplift Black culture and thought and art in this way. And I appreciate you for being here. Thank you for your suggestion of inviting your colleague, Katrin. It was a pleasure to meet you. I'm sorry we haven't been able to meet face to face yet. I look forward to it. Thank you for your contributions and for your scholarship. Thank you to the Muslim Student Association. If you guys are here, throw something up in the reactions, but I believe you all are here. We thank you all for your support. Big thank you to all of the music students who are not in 301 or 208 this semester that are just here to support Dr. Goods. I appreciate and love every last one of you. Thank you to my department chair, Mr. Mark Connolly, for his support in securing these funds. Thank you to the Dean's office and Dean Jeanette Rowley for facilitating this. Thank you, Assistant Dean Earl Smith. I think you were actually in attendance. Thank you to the Provost's office for writing the check. And we're going to pray that check is timely and on time for Ms. Haydar. Thank you to thank you to Mona and her boys, and to her manager, Sebastian. Thank you all for your patience and your artistry and for being here tonight. If we can give Mona and a big virtual round of applause in the reactions.
I just want to say a big thank you to Dr. Goods, and I want to offer my gratitude to all of you at the school for bringing me out. And I pray this is a year, multi-generational thing that you all continue with. What a beautiful, beautiful course that you are teaching, that you both came up with. Thank you for your work in that. And to the panelists, just thank you all for your beautiful questions, and to all those who came and asked questions. I appreciate you. And one final thing, you can't walk away. For us, we say that you haven't thanked God unless you've thanked people. And so I always try to mention my professor Dr. Tracy Curry, who believed in me, a beautiful Black woman in the city of Flint, Michigan, who believed in me and told me that my voice mattered, and without her, I wouldn't exist. So thank you to all you teachers, professors who inspire this next generation to go forward and share their hearts with the world. Thank you.
I should also thank my mother, and I think she invited a whole bunch of my aunties, but we weren't. I wasn't able to connect with the MSA in time, so my mom stepped in and read Al Fatiha at the beginning. So I should thank my mom, first for life and then for pinch hitting. So thank you, mommy. And I guess that is it. Thank you all for being here. Please check our website. The URI Music website for events that are happening. Things are still happening virtually on YouTube, and we are excited that pretty soon we will be announcing a full slate of concerts for next year, both virtual and in person. Yes, you can come and sit down and watch Dr. Goods dance in front of the big band. That is always a crowd favorite. You don't want to miss this big brother up there dancing. So we will see you next time.